Sir, hello.
హలో
Sir. అది
Yes,
మిస్టేక్ హలో సార్.
చెప్పు చెప్పు.
ఇక్కడ మిస్టేక్ పైన రాశాను సార్ నేను. థర్డ్ క్లాస్ డిఫైన్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు ఫస్ట్ క్లాస్ నుంచి ఇక్కడ ఫ్యాట్ ఎక్స్టెండ్ ప్రైమ్ అని రాశాను. ప్రైమ్ కాదు. సెకండ్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ తీసుకున్నాను. రివర్స్
రివర్స్
రివర్స్ అని రావాలి. ఫ్యాట్ ఎక్స్టెండ్ రివర్స్ అని రావాలి.
నువ్వు ఏది రాసినా నేను ఆల్రెడీ ఈ కాన్సెప్ట్ చెప్పింది కదా, మల్టీ లెవెల్ ఇన్హెరిటెన్స్ లేదంటే హైరార్కికల్ ఇన్హెరిటెన్స్ చేయమన్నా కదా.
ఇది మల్టీయే కదా సార్ ఇది.
ఇది మల్టీ లెవెల్ నేను ఆల్రెడీ నీకు చెప్పాను కదా ఆల్రెడీ.
సార్ అంటే
మల్టీ
ఇందులోనే చెప్పండి సార్.
3 ఫార్మ్స్ కంప్లీట్ చేశాను నీకు.
మ్మ్.
నిన్ను రాయమన్నది ఏంటంటే ఈ మల్టీ లెవెల్ ని హైరార్కికల్ ని కంబైన్ చేసి లేదంటే సింగిల్ ని హైరార్కికల్ ని కంబైన్ చేసి హైబ్రిడ్ ఇన్హెరిటెన్స్ రాయమన్నా.
ఓకే.
ఉమ్.
అర్థం. నేను రేపు చేసేస్తా సార్ ఇప్పుడు అది. అంటే ఇది రావాలేదని నేను మొత్తం చూసేసాను. నేను కొన్ని చిన్న చిన్నవి వదిలేసాను. అందుకు దీనిలో ప్రాబ్లం అయిపోయింది.
Okay, complete that by tomorrow.
ఓకే సార్.
Today, earlier, did we complete overloading concept?
నో సార్.
Okay. So, there is a concept called overloading and another concept called overriding. Let me tell you about this overloading. To some extent, we have seen overloading related to constructors when we discussed constructors. I remember constructor overloading. So, there is another concept called method overloading also. So generally we call this two terms as together overloading. Overloading can be done with methods as well as with constructors. If we do with constructors, we call it as constructor overloading. If we do with normal methods, we call it as method overloading. And there is another term which is related to inheritance. This is called as overriding. And people get confused between these beginners programmers. They get confused with this both overloading and overriding if they don't understand these two concepts well. So that's the reason why I want to deal these two topics at the same time instead of dealing overloading separately long back. And then again, when we come across inheritance, uh, we'll learn something called overriding. So they get confused. Overriding is nothing but overloading or what. So later. That is not the case. Overloading is different and overriding is different. They have a bit of similarity, not complete similarity, but a bit of similarity in their names. You will get over at the beginning, and here also you will get over. So that's the reason why they get confused. That is the first reason. And in the functionality wise also, the concept wise also, in between overloading and overriding, there is a bit similarity. So that is the reason which will lead to further more confusion. So let me give clarity between overloading and overriding. What is the difference between overloading and overriding? Coming to the first one, overloading, the process in which one or more, two or more methods, not one or more, two or more methods are defined same name but with different type signatures. is called as overloading. Okay, so the process in which two or more methods, and these methods can be in a class, or let me put this in a class defined, then it will be further meaningful. What is overloading? The process in which two or more methods are defined in a class with in a single class, not in different class. Okay, they are defined in the same class with same uh, uh, name. I think this is going same name but with different type signatures. So what do you mean by same name but with different type signatures? So when you look at the syntax of methods in Java programming, how does it look like? It will look like return type. You have something called return type. Then it will have method name, and then in the parenthesis you have parameter list. So this is the general syntax for methods in Java programming. So when you say in a single class there are two or more methods with same name in the sense their method name will be same. Okay, but with different type signatures means either the return type is different, or the number of parameters are different, or the type of parameters are different. That is the meaning of type signature. So every method will have a type signature. And what do you mean by type signature means the return type of the method and the type of parameters and number of parameters you pass to that method. So both these two together we call it as type signature. Every method will have two things: name of the method and the other one is type signature. So both the name and the type signature together we call will form the complete syntax for the method definition in a Java program, right? So for example, let me show you an example. Say I have defined a method with say int uh, and with two parameters, say int comma a comma int p, like this. So this is one method definition, method syntax. So here the return type here in this example is integer. The name of the method is sum, and number of parameters is 2, and both the parameters are of type integer. First parameter is integer and second parameter is also integer. So I can overload this method by defining one more method with same name but with different return types. Instead of int, if I have void and the name of the method is same sum, it must be same, and uh, parameters may be of type float, like right. So now what we say, these two methods are overloaded. And when do we say that these are overloaded? When both these methods are defined in a single class, right? If they are defined in say class A, then we call them as we call these methods as overloaded methods. The concept is called as overloading. So what is overloading? The process in which two or methods are defined in a class with same name but with different type signature is called as overloading. And what do you can easily understand with same name means the method name is same, method name is also sum, and this method name is also sum, right? But the return type of this method is integer and the return type of this method is void, and the type of parameters that we pass is here both are integers and here both are float. So you may define one more method like this: void sum, but the first parameter is integer and second parameter is float. Like this also you can do. So here this also indicates there is a different type signature. So the first parameter is integer and second parameter is float, and here both are float, and here both are sum, and both are integers, right? So similarly, I can define another method with its return type as int. Name of the method sum, it is same. So name will not change. Name will be same. Then only we call it as overloading. But only thing that will change is the type of parameters, return type of the parameter. Any of them will be changing. See now, instead of two parameters, I have only one parameter, float a. This is also called as overloading. So I can define multiple versions of this sum method, but the name will be same, but the type of parameters may change, the number of parameters may change, or the return type of the method may change. But the return type will not have much more significance in overloading. Sometimes even if the return types are different, but the type of parameters are same, then there will be a conflict between these two methods, right? So you can even ignore the return type of the method. You need to consider mostly the number of parameters and the type of parameters. So this is called as overloading. Okay, and this overloading can be implemented with or without inheritance. So if you are if you are not implementing inheritance in your program, you are writing a normal Java program which does not use inheritance at all. In that case, we'll define one class, and in that class itself, we'll define all these 3 or 4 different versions of some. And if you are using inheritance, then also you can use this overloading concept, but uh, superclass will have two different versions of some method, and subclass will have two different versions of some method, right? Then we call this as overloading also. This is also called as overloading, right? So you may define these two different versions of the sum method either in the superclass or in the subclass. One method can be defined in superclass and another method can be defined in subclass. Because subclass is inheriting all the members of superclass, the version that is defined in superclass will also be available in subclass. And in subclass, you are defining one more version of the sum method. Then both the sum methods together in the subclass will be called as overloaded methods, right? But inheritance is not mandatory. Even though if inheritance is not there, you can define two or more methods with same name but with different type signatures in a single class, right? So this is overloading. And instead of overloading methods, if you overload constructors, that means if you define multiple constructors, we have already done this constructor, multiple constructors defined in a single class. So that constructors, their names will be same, right? But their number of parameters or type of parameters will be different. So that we call that concept as constructor overloading. So I think we have already done this program, constructor overloading program. I will tell you that if when you define more than one constructor in a single class, those two constructors are said to be overloaded, and the process is called as overloading. So that is constructor overloading. And now whatever we are going to see, that will be method overloading. Right. Anyhow, constructors will have same name, right, as that of the class. So obviously, all the constructors will have same name, and the only thing that differs in constructor overloading is the number of parameters and type of parameters. I hope we have done this program. So let me show you some. So this is an example of constructor program. See, we have defined one constructor without any parameters here. The class name is second. So we have defined one constructor, default constructor without any parameter, and initializing x to 0 with this constructor. And here we have defined one more constructor with one parameter. This is parameterized constructor. So that means a constructor is also a special method. So what is the rule for overloading? The name of the method must be same. And obviously constructors, if you define multiple constructors, because their name is same as that of class name, obviously the constructors names, multiple constructor names will be same. But only thing that will differ is the type of parameters or the number of parameters. If you look at this first constructor, it has one parameter of type integer, and then when you look at the second constructor, it does not have any parameter, right? So now we can say that both these constructors are overloaded. So you can define any number of constructors you want. Here I have defined with one parameter, right? You can define one more constructor with two parameters or three parameters also. Or instead of passing one integer parameter, you can pass one float parameter. Then also that will be called as another overloaded constructor. So you can define as many constructors as you want, and this is called as constructor overload. But now what we are going to discuss in this context is method overloading. So that means what? Overloading can be done with methods as well as with constructors. And constructors both can be overloaded. So if we define both method, two or more methods with same name but with different type signature, then we say the process has the overloading, and the methods which are defined in such a way, they are said to be overloaded. So now all these four different versions of these methods, some methods are said to be overloaded methods, right? Now what type of method is some? If somebody asks you, then you must say it is an overloaded method. It is an overloaded method. Is it an overloaded or overridden method? If they ask you, then you must say it is an overloaded method. Similarly, constructors also can be overloaded, right? So just before I showed you one program in which the class name is second, and we have defined two constructors, second with only one parameter that is of integer type, and another constructor second with no parameters. So that is constructor overloading. So let us put this constructor overloading aside and discuss only about method overloading, right? So overloading can be done on both methods and constructors. If it is done with methods, then we call it as method overloading. If we do it with constructors, then it is called as constructor overloading. Okay. So now let us see an example program uh, using method overloading. Let me write you about overloading program, but before that let me tell you about overriding also. Overriding is different. Overriding is different. Okay. So overriding will occur only when there is inheritance. If there is no inheritance, then there is no overriding. But overloading is different, right? Overloading will occur irrespective of whether inheritance is used in your program or it is not used. But coming to overriding, it happens only when there is inheritance, first of all, right? So let me tell you about this overriding. Overriding is the process in which two or more methods, or instead of saying two or more methods, a subclass defines method with same name and type signature as that of a method in superclass is called overriding. So what is this mean? What is the meaning of this one? You have a superclass and you have a subclass. If I define, for example, a method called int sum, int this method, for example, I'll write it here. So I'm defining a method called int sum with two parameters, both of type integer. Say this is defined in class A, right? Then later, if I define same method, their names will be same, their type signature also will be same, right? So the return type of this method is integer, and the return type of this method is also integer. And the number of parameters in the sum here in class A is same, int A comma int B, two parameters, and both are of type integers. And here also both are of integers, and there are only two parameters. Exactly the same replica of that method will be defined. Their name and type signature will be defined, but this is defined in class B, and this is class B is derived from say uh, class A. That means B is a subclass of A, right? So this A is superclass of B, right? So now we call this concept as overriding. This concept called as overriding. So first we'll discuss about overloading and then come to overriding. So I hope you understood the difference between overloading and overriding.
Yes, sir.
So now we'll go to writing a program. I put this in comment. I'll write class overload. So these two are over and load are not different words. They are considered as a single word. Say I'm going to read a method. I'll read for that. Let me um, comma L comma B. So I'm declaring three different instance variables, and I'll define a method called area. I'll use return type as double, and for this I'll pass one parameter A, and in this area method what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize only s with parameter value A. So I want to consider this s as side of a square. So you know the polygons, right? Rectangle and squares. So I want to find in this program the area of a square and area of a rectangle. So you know the area of a square is side into side. So you will have only one measurement for a square. So that measurement I'm going to store in this variable s. So now this s will represent the side of a square. And coming to L and B, they both represent the length and breadth of the rectangle, right? So I'm defining this area method twice. The return types are also same here. Their method names are also same. But if you look at the second version of this area method, I'm going to pass two parameters here, a comma int. Earlier I passed only, for the first version I passed only one parameter. For the second version I'm passing two parameters. I require two parameters to initialize both length and breadth of the rectangle. So here L is equal to write A and B is equal to, I'll write, sorry, let us take instead of A and B X and Y, or else we have to use this keyword. So let us use this keyword. So this refers to the instance variable B. this dot b, and simply b refers to the parameter b, right? So now, apart from initializing the variables in these methods, we'll also calculate and return the area of the square and area of the rectangle. So in this case, what I have to return sr s, right? And in this case, what I have to return l star this dot b. So when I call this area method with only passing one parameter, then this method will return area of the square. And when I call area method with by passing two parameters, then this will return the length, area of the rectangle, right? So if you want, I can mention here area of a square, and here area of rectangle. So now I'm going to define another method which contains the main method. So here I'm going to write overload demo. So here I'm going to define the main method. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to uh, create an object O1 for this class overload, right? So after creating a method for this one, then I'll create a scanner object. So this I need to import java.util package. So let me write that also, otherwise we'll forget later. So after creating this one, I'm going to read uh, all the measurements of both square as well as rectangle, right? So first I'll display a message to the user system.out.println enter height of square. Then I'll store this in a variable called s. In s is equal to what is the object name? Sorry, parameter name. Object name is this, created as s, right? So let me take this as s1. So s1 dot next string. This will read the side of the square and store it in the variable yes. Then I'll define a double variable because the area is going to be either floating point or double. Yeah, so I'm taking double here. So the area method will return a double type of value, right? I need a double variable here to store the uh, area of the square, right? So I'll write area square or square area is equal to what is the method name one dot area, and we need to pass only one parameter. So what is that parameter I'm going to pass? Yes, because the side of the square is read from the keyboard and stored in the variable yes. So I need to pass that integer variable yes as parameter to this method. So this is going to invoke what? This is going to call uh, first version of area. Okay. Then after this I'm going to display another message to the user to enter. This time enter, instead of side of the square, I'll mention length and breadth, because this time we are going to find area of the rectangle. So it requires two parameters. I'll mention area, length and width of the rectangle. Then I must take two variables right here. So int L is equal to, L stands for length. What is the object for scanner? S1 dot next int. And the next one is breadth. So here instead of L, I have to use B. So, so both these variables now L and B will store length and breadth of the rectangle that we read from the keyboard. So after this, what we need to do? We need to store the area, right? So double rectangle area. So I'll write rect area. And how many parameters I need to pass? Two parameters, L comma. So now this will invoke, or this will call second version. Okay. So now after you read this value, after these
సార్
values are written, yeah,
ఇక్కడ ఫార్మేట్ తప్పు ఉన్నట్టుంది సార్. డబల్ రెక్ట్ ఏరియా అని లాస్ట్లో ఈక్వల్స్ టు అని రాయాలి. ఐ మీన్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ నేమ్ పైన వేరేది రాశారు కదా.
okay. Yeah, so yes, this must be method name area, right? Fine. So now after this, we can use a system.out.println to display both the area of rectangle and area of square. Area of square is, so where is this area stored? In square area. So let me copy this and put it here. Similarly, area of rectangle sorry, something else is printed. Where is square area? Square is width area. Now let us compile and check the program. If there are any errors, and let us correct those errors and then run the program. Error cannot find symbol area L comma B. Method name is same, number of parameters is different. This is one parameter and this is two parameters.
Sir, I guess from the in down there is a mistake.
Where
Down while defining the while taking the values. Area of L comma B అని రాశారు ఇక్కడ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ రాయలేదు.
yeah, O1 dot area. Right. Fine. Now let us run this program. So if I give say 5 and then length and width say 3, so area of square is 25, area of rectangle is 12. Okay, so this is how overloading can be done. So what is significant in overloading is the name of the methods can be same, right? They must be same. If you want to implement overloading, they must be same. But the number of parameters and the type of parameters must differ. If you use same number of parameters and same type of parameters, then automatically uh, the overloading will not be implemented and you'll get a compilation error. And sometimes if you don't mention the parameters properly also, right? Say here I'm taking both integer parameters, right? Say for example, if I use instead of int double parameter here, right? Now let us compile it and run it. What will happen? So we are passing what type of parameters to the area method? L and B are passed and both L and B are integer parameters. But did we define a method called area with two integer parameters? No, we defined with two double parameters. Now we compile it again. So what is the error it is showing? Incompatible types, possible lossy conversion. L is equal to A and this dot B is equal to B. Because during definition of the method, we have defined the parameter types to be double. But what we are trying to give is integer values, right? And let me, instead of using double, I'll give int only. But I'll declare these two parameters as double values. Of int, I'll declare them as double values. Now let me compile it. So incompatible types, possible lossy conversion again. So you're calling area of L comma B, where L comma B are double types, but the definition has given integer types, right? So here in this case, what we have done is the definition we have given double parameters, but while passing parameters, we have passed integer parameters. So in both the cases, you're getting errors. So let me change them back to int again. Okay. Now I hope you understood the what is overloading, right? So in that way, you can define as many area methods as you want. Here I have defined 2 area methods, right? You can define 3 area methods, 4 area methods also. And this overloading can occur even in inheritance also. We can define a subclass here, say another class called uh, areas, and extend class with this overload. Here I can define an area method here also, double area. But look here, I didn't define any, I didn't create any parameters for this area. So now because areas is a subclass for overload, automatically all the methods that are there in overload class will also be inherited to areas method. So how many versions of area method will be there now in this subclass areas? 3 methods will be there. One which is defined exclusively in this areas class, and 2 more area method with from the overload class. Right? Altogether, areas will have how many methods with the same name area? 3 methods will be there. So in that case also we call them as overloaded methods, right? So even when using inheritance also, this overloading can occur. Why this will occur? Because overloading is what it is confined to a class. It is not, if I define another class, say overload demo, here in this overload demo, if I define another method called area, that will not be called as overloaded method, because the area method that is defined in overload demo is different, and overload demo class does not have any relationship with overload class. It is neither a subclass nor superclass, right? So only when in a subclass, if you define another version of the same method with same name but with different type signatures, here there are no parameters here, and whereas here you have 2 parameters and 1 parameter, because the subclass will inherit automatically all the methods of superclass. So what does it mean? Automatically areas class will also have these 2 versions of this area method, and when that is having all the other 2 versions of area method, then when we consider this areas class, this will have now 3 different versions of area method, one with single parameter integer parameter, one with 2 integer parameters, and the other one third one with no parameters. So totally 3 versions of area method will be there. Now we can say that this area method is also overloaded in the subclass areas also. It is already overloaded in superclass overload, but it is once again overloaded in subclass areas, right? So in superclass we have only 2 versions of the area method, whereas in subclass you will have 3 versions of the area method. So that is why we say that area method is overloaded both in superclass as well as in subclass. In superclass we are overloading it twice, uh, and in subclass we are overloading it by defining it 3 times, right? So we can do that also. So you can take that as an assignment. Okay, is that okay, Yashwant? So will you do that as an assignment?
Yes, sir.
Overloading. Please mute your audio. So this is about overloading. Now we have to go for overriding. Overriding is different. So what is overriding means? Already I have defined, I have given the definition for overriding. So what is overriding? The process in which a subclass defines a method with same name and type signature as that of a method in superclass. This is called as overriding, right? So what is happening? Definitely there must be inheritance. If it is overloading, we need not have inheritance. Even without inheritance, we have written this program without inheritance, right? So overload is one different class and overload demo is different class. So we have defined area method and overloaded it in the overload class, and we have created object for overload class in this overload demo, and call those two different versions normally. But if it is inheritance, then we must have at least one subclass for any of the classes in this program. So we didn't define any subclasses in this program. So that means we didn't implement inheritance in our program, right? So, but coming to overriding, inheritance is mandatory. If there is no inheritance, then there is no overloading. So remember this point. Overriding, I'll put this in comment demo. And one note point you need to remember is overriding occurs only when inheritance is used. If no inheritance is used, then there is no override. But coming to overloading, it is not that case. Overloading occurs irrespective of whether overriding inheritance is used or not. So let me mention here also. Overloading occurs irrespective of whether inheritance is used or not. Right? So that is a difference, major difference between overriding and overloading, which is an important thing. And the other difference is in overloading, the return type need not be same, and the number of parameters and type of parameters need not be same. Only thing that remains same is the method name, right? But coming to overriding, all the uh, different versions of method with same name must have same type signature, right? So that is a first major difference. So let me write a program here. So I'll write class override, and I'll define a integer instance variable, say int yes. And here I'll define a double area method with one parameter int say a, and I'll assign s with a. Okay? And then I'll return. So this is going to return say star s. Is nothing but the area of the pair. Then I'm defining another class, a circle hence override. Now here I'll define two instance variables s comma r. So I'll define the same double method here, double area. Way. But here what I'm going to do is I don't need two parameters, one parameter is sufficient because circle requires radius. So I'm going to assign r with a, and what is the area of a circle? Pi r square, right? So I'll write 3.14. This is what I'm going to return. So, this will return what? Area of circle. Now, what does this mean here? You look at the area method that I defined here. The return type is same. Method name is area, and number of parameters is 1, and that too, that parameter is also of type integer. Coming to this double area method, so return type is the same, method name is also same, number of parameters is also same, and type of parameter is also same. Here it is int, and here also it is int. The name of the parameter may be different. Here I may take A, here I may take B, but their type is same. The type matters, not the name of the parameter. Name of the parameter is not considered here. What is considered here is the type of the parameters. So here it is integer, and here also it is integer. And what else is considered? The number of parameters. Here it is only one parameter, and here also it is only one parameter. So now we can say that this double area, which is defined in the subclass circle, is going to override the double area which is defined in the superclass. So as per inheritance rule, what must happen to this circle? All the members of the superclass that is override will automatically be members of also circle. So in that case, this instance variable s will be additionally available in circle also, right? And even this double area method also will be available in this circle. If that is the case, then what does it indicate? The circle method class will have two methods with same method names. Their type signatures are also same. If their type signatures are different, then we can say that they are overloaded, and we can differentiate them by calling them with the exact match of their parameter type and number of parameters. If you pass one parameter in the previous program, what we have done is, uh, when we pass only one parameter, this method double area is invoked, right? And when we passed two parameters, this method is invoked. So method resolution during runtime is done. So which method to call? Because the method names are same, but the number of parameters are different. So when you run this program, how will the runtime environment know which method to invoke, either this method or this method? It will be known to the runtime environment by looking at the number of parameters and type of parameters. Here, when you call area method from the main method, here in this case you are passing two parameters, and in this case when you are calling area method, you are passing only one parameter. So in this case, which method will be invoked? This method will be invoked. But in the second case where you pass two parameters, this will be invoked, right? But coming to this overriding, we cannot decide which method to invoke, right? Both the methods have same name, same number of parameters, same type of parameter. So when you create an object for subclass circle somewhere in another class, say I am going to create a class override demo, and here I am going to create object, the main method. Here I am going to create an object for circle. I'm not going to create object for superclass. I'm going to create an object for subclass. Why? Because automatically subclass will have both the members of superclass as well as subclass. It is no need for me to create object for superclass. Instead, I can create object for subclass. So that is what we have done in the previous programs, right? When we discussed inheritance. So when you want to implement all the features of the subclass, instead of creating object for superclass, we can create object for subclass. If we want only features of superclass, then we can create object for superclass one. Right? So creating objects for both the classes not required. So as per our requirement, we can create objects. So here, if I create object for circle, I can access the members of superclass as well as I can access the members exclusive members of subclass. But if I create object for superclass, what will happen? I can access only members of superclass only. I cannot access the members of subclass. So that's the reason we need to create object for subclass. So I'm creating object C circle. Then now if I call C dot area, I'm going to because this is going to return double. So I'll write double area. I'm going to create a variable area, or simply I'll write A1. I'm going to call C dot area and pass one integer parameter. Then I'm going to pass 10 here. Okay. So which method will be called? This area method will be called, or this area method will be called, because this also will be member of circle, because it circle is subclass for override. Okay, so this version of this area method also will be there. So the circle class will have two versions of area method, but their names are same, type signatures are also same. So when everything is same, how will the runtime environment know which method to invoke? So it will not know which to invoke. But because the object with which you are calling is a type of circle object, and circle is a subclass object, so this is going to invoke subclass version of the area method, right? So I'll mention here calls subclass version of area method. Why? Because both their method names are same and type signatures are same. And what do you call that as? Overriding. What is now this called as overriding? So which method is overriding which method means the subclass version of area is overriding the superclass version of area. So overriding means it is going to hide, because both names are same, both type signatures are same. When you create an object for subclass, the subclass object will only call the invoke the subclass version of that area method, overridden method. So this superclass version will never be called to call with the subclass object, right? So what if you want to call the superclass version also? So this will postpone it for tomorrow's class. So let me first compile this and run this program and show you the output. I did save this program. I'll save this in inheritance folder. Right?
Sir, new keyword is missing, I think so.
What is missing?
New keyword. Circle C is equals to new.
Yes. It is not working properly. also have some other issues. Fine. But we are not displaying this value that is returned somewhere, right? So that's why we are not getting any output here. Dot. Yeah. Calculated with what? New one. Area of circle is 314. Because we have passed radius as 10, 10 into 3.14 is 31.4 into 10 is 340. Right. So never this square area method will be called. We cannot do anything to call this superclass version of square area, right? So how to call the superclass version of area without creating object for superclass? Now, if I create an object for superclass here, then I can call area method, because a superclass object can only access the members of superclass. It cannot access the members of subclass, right? So that's why definitely this will be called, square area will be called, right? But coming to subclass object, this will never be called. This superclass area version will never be called. So how to make that possible so that superclass version of the area method also can be called with subclass object only, right? So this will can be made possible by using a keyword called super keyword. So we are going to use super keyword in tomorrow's session and solve this problem. Okay, and but for tomorrow you need to complete the hybrid inheritance program as well as overloading key with inheritance, overloading combined with inheritance. Okay,
Okay, sir.
right. So we'll meet tomorrow.